Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, a lot to talk about today, but this story it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So here is now exactly what is taking place. An illegal alien from Jamaica, Yaman, came into this country actually legally. This was on September 24th, 2023. So this was under Joey when Joe Biden was president. John Luke Evans is the person's name. Came into the country illegally. I assume on a tourist visa because he only had permission to stay for 1 week until October 1st, 2023. Well, like many people under Joey, he just overstayed the visa. And so he stayed in the United States, did not return to Jamaica. And so by overstaying his visa, John Luke Evans obviously is an illegal alien. Now, what is incredible is that he ended up going all the way up to Old Orchard Beach in the town of Old Orchard in Maine and applied to be a police officer. And what is incredible, and this is what they cannot explain, here is a man on a tourist visa, overstayed his visa, has no social security number whatsoever, is clearly an illegal from Jamaica, and yet, according to the police department in Old Orchard, not only was he hired at the Old Orchard Beach Police Department, they gave him a badge. He had the power to arrest U.S. citizens, and he became a law enforcement officer. And on top of everything else, according to them, this is what's absolutely incredible. According to them, they say he passed all of the background checks. That they did a physical background check. They did a criminal background check. They claim that they did an immigration background check. And he passed the law enforcement training. And so they said, according to them, they did a full search on the Department of Homeland Security database. They checked ICE. They did a comprehensive immigration status check. And guess what? According to them, he was fine and he was allowed to work in the United States. Now, I don't believe them. I'm telling you right now, I don't believe them. I think there was tremendous pressure, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, hire as many minorities as you can. I don't care where they come from, just hire them. And that's why they decided to hire John Luke Evans. But that's neither here or there for the moment. The fact of the matter is, they hired an illegal alien. Now, the only reason why this idiot got caught is he's now working at the Old Orchard Town Police Department. Now, listen to this. Now, if I were him and I'm here illegally and I'm suddenly now a peace officer, a law enforcement officer, I would just lay low. I mean, call me crazy. I would just, hey, I can't believe my luck. No. He then applies for a firearm. He wants to get himself a gun. And that's when he applied for a gun. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, then caught him. It triggered something in the ATF database where they said, whoa, this guy's overstayed his visa now for many years. He's an illegal. What's going on? They coordinated with ICE and they ended up arresting John Luke Evans. So the police officer got arrested by federal law enforcement. Now, a couple of points, and then I want to open it up to you, the great audience of Kuhner Country. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, first of all, I don't know if I'm the only one. It is to me beyond obscene disgusting, frankly, that a town in Maine, any town in the United States, would hire an illegal alien to be a law enforcement officer, a police officer. I want you to think about how insulting and degrading this is. The very laws that this police officer is supposed to enforce are the very laws that he is breaking and has broken. And not only did he come into our country illegally, not only did he commit document fraud and identity fraud in applying for a job he had no business applying for, but on top of everything else, he then illegally sought to purchase a firearm. In other words, crime after crime after crime after crime. And this is now what we're going to start to see in the United States of America? We're going to start to see now illegals become police officers and enforce the very laws that they are breaking and violating with impunity. It will literally destroy and, in fact, make a mockery of our entire legal judicial system. Now, what I did not know, and this also came as a shock to me, and again, maybe I'm a little bit too naive on certain things. Did you know that Maine is one of 12 states? I had no idea this law was on the books. I never knew one state was doing it, never mind 12. Maine is part of a dozen states, 12 states, whereby non-citizens can be police officers. I don't mean illegals. It's illegal for an illegal to be a police officer. But if you're here on a work visa, if you're here on a whatever, you're a permanent resident or whatever, if you're here in the country legally, but you're not a citizen, you could actually become, I swear to you, you could actually become a police officer in Maine and in a dozen other states. Most of them, pretty obvious, blue states. No, absolutely not. You want to work in the fire department. You want to work you want to work in law enforcement. You want to work as a police officer. You have to be a citizen of the United States, because you are tasked with enforcing the laws of the United States and or doing something extremely dangerous involving public service, like, say, working in the fire department. By the way, same thing for politicians. I don't think anybody should be elected as a politician who's a non-citizen. I don't care if they're in this country illegally. I don't care. Legally. My bad. In other words, I don't care if they're on a green card or some kind of a work visa. No, you don't get to sit on a city council. You don't get to run for mayor. You don't get to run for state rep or state senator or Congress or whatever. No, absolutely not. Now, according to the laws of Maine, non-citizens, legal non-citizens, are allowed to be law enforcement officers. They're allowed to be cops, to be police officers. And so, according to the police chief and the mayor, what they're trying to claim, or the town manager, what they're trying to claim is, no, there was a mix-up with E-Verify. When we checked the E-Verify system, it said that he was allowed to be in the United States on some kind of a visa until 2030, March of 2030. So we said, fine. He may not be a citizen. He may not even be a green card holder, but he can be here on a visa. So, hey, let's give him a gun, let's give him a badge, and give him the power to arrest American citizens. This is insane. Now, what is very clear to me, very, very clear to me, is that we have a problem. Because now you're seeing other stories pop up, corrections officers who are illegal aliens. You're starting to see, it's illegal aliens now are clearly becoming more and more part of the American mainstream. And if they're allowed now to actually become police officers, think about this. They can gun down U.S. citizens. They can arrest and put handcuffs on U.S. citizens. They can detain U.S. citizens. So they come into our country like this clown. He's allowed to be in this country for 1 week. He overstays his visa. And before you know it, he's wearing a badge, sworn to uphold and protect the law and the Constitution of the United States. 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so ICE agents, along with ATF, arrested a Jamaican illegal alien who, I kid you not, was employed as an officer for the Old Orchard Police Department in Maine. In fact, I want to give a hat tip to Fox News' Bill Malugin. He's the one that first broke this story. So, according to Bill Malugin at Fox News, the illegal alien, his name is John Luke Evans, tried to illegally purchase a gun, and that triggered an alert to ATF. That's how they were able to find out and nab the guy. Had the idiot not bought himself or tried to buy himself a gun, he'd still be working at Old Orchard. Anyway, so they're trying now. The department is desperately trying to now cover up their tracks. They're claiming that, well, he never had a gun while he was on duty. That's not true. Bill Malugin has come out with pictures, photos of Officer John Luke Evans with his firearm. They did issue him a firearm. That's a lie. You see him being sworn in with a badge and a gun in his holster. And let me just read to you a statement that was by Patricia Hyde. She is the field office director for ICE Boston, which helped to make the arrest. Quote, John Luke Evans not only broke U.S. immigration law, but he also illegally attempted to purchase a firearm. Shockingly, Evans was employed as a local law enforcement officer. The fact that a police department would hire an illegal alien and unlawfully issue him a firearm while on duty would be comical if it weren't so tragic. We have a police department that was knowingly breaking the very law they are charged with enforcing in order to employ an illegal alien. And then it goes on, ICE Boston will continue to prioritize public safety by arresting and removing criminal alien threats from our New England communities, and on it goes. Now, this is to me what I find incredible. You give an illegal alien a badge, a gun. He's a police officer. Now, there were others. There were American citizens who applied for that job. And yet they deliberately chose an illegal over American citizens. Now, and by the way, it is a crime. It is a federal crime to harbor or coddle or aid or abet illegal aliens. So the police department in Old Orchard, literally, law enforcement, the police who are supposed to enforce and uphold the law, broke immigration law, violated the law in order to hire this guy because they were so desperate. This is just, the last part is my opinion. Okay, he's clearly an illegal. I think it's part of a diversity push. I think there's no question. And so they looked at applicant after, and I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter, male or female. White, no, white, no, white, no, white. Whoa, we got a black guy here. Whoa, hey, this is exactly what we want. We're starting to check some boxes. Oh, okay, hold on. What is this? He's from Jamaica? Oh, he's not a citizen. What? He's not even a green card holder. What? And they didn't care. They didn't care. He overstayed his visa. They didn't care. And had this guy not gone on his own time to get himself a personal firearm, then and ATF had not flagged him, he'd still be working today. They would have gotten away with it. Now they're all trying to cover their rear ends by claiming, oh, we looked into E-Verify. We looked at DHS. It said we could hire him until March 2030. He had some kind of a visa. Really? What's his social security number? Because the last time I checked, you can't hire anybody without a social security number. He didn't have a social security number. So what'd you guys do? Make one up for him? So you've got corruption now at that police department. They hired an illegal, and now they're trying to cover up for the fact that they knowingly hired an illegal. So I want to ask all of you, I want to open up the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. And I want to ask all of you this. Should non-citizens, I'm not talking illegal aliens, I'm talking legal non-citizens. You're on a green card, a work visa, whatever it may be, okay? If you are a legal non-citizen in the United States, should you be allowed to work or be hired as a police officer? Maine has a law in the books that says yes, so do about a dozen other states. I say that's insane, but that's me. I want to hear from you. And in particular regarding this scandal, should illegal aliens be hired as police officers? Should this cop, John Luke Evans, be fired? I say definitely, without a doubt. And should everyone involved in the hiring of this illegal from Jamaica be fired as well? I say yes. What say you? 617-266-6868. They're making a mockery of our laws. They're making a mockery of our country. And honestly, they are now clearly prioritizing illegals over U.S. citizens. And it's getting to the point now where they almost want us to be under the thumb of illegals. This, to me, embodies Biden's America and what the left ultimately wants to do. Import illegals by the millions and millions and millions, and then give them ultimate power over American citizens. And in this case, in Maine, in Old Orchard, this illegal had the power to arrest, the power to detain, the power to have a gun, a badge, the power, if he felt there was a need, to actually even shoot and use his weapon. I'm sorry, it makes my blood boil. It makes my blood absolutely boil. 617-266-6868. Illegal aliens, police officers. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so just to clarify, because a couple of you are texting into the show. John Luke Evans, this illegal alien from Jamaica, has been arrested, obviously, he's an illegal alien who now attempted to buy a firearm, illegally sought to purchase a firearm. So the police department had no choice. They had to let him go. But how did it even get to this point? To me, that's the question. 617-266-6868. Before I go to the phone lines, this is from Mark on Messenger, and I think he's right on point. Jeff, do you mean to tell me that the police department in Maine doesn't have the capability to know if someone is an illegal alien? Especially if they want to be a police officer? I call BS. What the hell is going on here, Jeff? More importantly, what's going on up in Maine? Are they that incompetent, or is this deliberate? Something smells here, Jeff, and yes, everyone involved should be fired immediately. Oh, I agree. I completely agree. No, look, Maine is changing. I think there's no question Maine is changing. It's nominally a purple state, but it's trending more and more blue. You have that crazy moonbat governor, and, you know, she's not letting go. She wants biological men to compete in women's sports. She wants them in women's locker rooms, showers, bathrooms. She's just not going to let go. And look, they've brought in a lot of illegals now into Maine. There's a huge Somali community, illegals. They brought them in, and now they're bringing in even more. And now there's a push in these towns to start hiring as many illegals as possible and turning a blind eye and making some of them police officers. And I'm sorry, I don't buy their excuse. I don't buy it for a second. They knew he was illegal. They knew he wasn't here legally. They knew not just that he was a non-citizen. They knew the fact that this guy came in and overstayed his visa. And they didn't give a damn. Because all that matters to them up in Maine for these moonbats is diversity, equity, inclusion. And they made in Old Orchard, they made a big deal about the fact that they had a black police officer. They promoted that hard. That's all that mattered to them. And they pushed out those pictures of him, you know, being sworn in with his gun and his badge and raising his hand. And I mean, they wanted to make a big deal out of it. So, you know, no. And again, this is very important. Not only were they violating the law that they're sworn to uphold and enforce, but they broke federal law in hiring an illegal. And they denied a job to an American citizen. This is so wrong on so many levels, it's not even funny. Agree, disagree. Larry in Leominster. You're going to kick us off, Larry. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Chef, 1 second, sir.
Larry?
I'm sorry, sir. I had to take off my earbuds. I'm out walking the dogs.
Oh,
yeah, sorry about that. I didn't know you were going to come to me that fast. So listen, can you imagine this conversation? Oh, man, do you know what I pulled you over, man? Do you have your papers, man? I'm sorry, do you have your papers?
No, but Larry, you make a really good point. He pulls you over for an expired driver's license or an expired registration or, you know, whatever. And you're like, I don't, you know, do you have your papers? No, do you have your papers? I mean, this is becoming, Larry, am I wrong or is this becoming insane?
Jeff, a couple points to get across right on the subject. So do you remember a few years ago we had that incident, and I think it was in the Minnesota area. I can't remember what city. But they had hired and promoted so hard that they hired, it was a diversity hire, it was a Somali man as a cop. And they were touting him while sweeping under the rug that he was harassing women. And he ended up murdering a woman who called the police. She walked out into the alley to complain about some suspicious character, and she was in her pajamas holding a cell phone, and he just pulled out his gun and shot her. That's right, point blank range. No, I remember that. It was a huge story. Right. Right in her driveway, and right there. He shot her dead. They made all sorts of excuses of why they had to hire him and stuff like that. Now, I think he might have been one of the illegal, you know, what do you call it, refugees or whatever, but still, that was a legal alien, and he was a disaster. Now, when I first got out of the Air Force, I was a jailer for a small town in Arkansas. This is what I had to go through. I had to go through a physical. I had to take a cognitive mental test that was consisted of 500 multiple choice questions. I forget the term. It's a Minnesota mental something. I had to take a lie detector test, pass all of that, and go through several interviews. So there is no way this slipped through the cracks. They knew exactly what they were doing. I was telling Mike that I was up in Thomaston, Maine, and Rockland over the weekend for a military function. The protesters up there were hilarious. They were on a corner. They weren't in the middle of the street, but every sign was protesting something different about the administration. I recall when protesting was, you pick one subject and you rally on that. They couldn't even make up their minds. Yeah, they're on the verge of turning blue, and Maine is woker than woke right now.
Larry, do you think there should be arrests for the police chief and everyone else involved in the hiring of this guy?
Sure. People need to lose their jobs. A couple of people need to be made examples of and go to prison. And like you said, the only reason this guy got caught is because he thought, well, they made me a cop. I guess the rest of the law enforcement community, ATF, whatever, is going to ignore that too. And he applies for a gun license or a gun, and that's another thing. Go ahead.
Larry, but this is what I don't get. And I don't know, maybe if you're the exact right person to ask, but maybe a police officer can call in. But I get it. They issue him a gun and a badge. So why does he need to apply for a personal firearm? Is it because he can't bring it home with him? Is that it? In other words, whatever. He's got an 8 to 4 job or a 9 to 6 job or whatever it is. So he can only have it on him for those hours. But he can't, after hours, he has to leave it at the police department or whatever. Is that the reason why he applied for a gun? I mean, I'm reading this story, multiple, I read it in the New York Post. I read it on Fox News. I read it in multiple other media outlets. And the whole time I'm saying, but you already have a gun. I mean, you've been issued a gun as a police officer. Why do you need another gun? Larry, do you have a theory on that?
It's on the state. Certain rules of police that, like, certain states, you're on duty 24/7, regardless if you're actually at work or not. So you can carry your service weapon, right? Some don't have that policy. Maybe a small town doesn't have that policy. So he wanted to get a off-duty weapon is what it's called, right? And so that's the norm. And again, he probably just thought, well, they gave me this one. The government gave me this one. Why can't I just get my own? And again, he got caught.
His own stupidity brought him down. This is what's incredible. Larry, as always, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. By the way, don't you need a social security number to apply for a job? Like, the question I want, there's so many questions. Like, no, but he didn't get when he came into the United States for that 1 week, that tourist visa that you get from Jamaica, okay, he came in through Miami International Airport. So, he was there to party in Miami. And he was allowed to come in for 1 week. You don't get a social security number. So, how did they process this guy? Unless he gave you a fake social security number? Okay, let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Should government employment, whether it be local, state, federal, it doesn't matter. Should government employment be limited to U.S. citizens? We're talking about, say, Maine. They have a law on the books now, which I wasn't aware of, that, for example, legal non-citizens, green card, work visa, whatever, student visa, whatever, that you can be a police officer, be hired as a police officer. So should this kind of employment be limited only to U.S. citizens? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. And again, last night, man, was I active on X. You can vote there as well. My handle, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN is in national ER. Again, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN is in national ER. You know my position. I am a hell yes all the way on this. Yes, it should be limited to U.S. citizens. Of course. What are we, nuts? But what you're seeing now is they want illegal aliens on city councils. They want them running for school board. They want them as mayors. They want them as state reps, as state senators. There was a dramatic case in Minnesota where a state rep came out and said, yeah, I'm an illegal alien. I just want all of you to know that. In other words, they want to take over piece by piece leading institutions within the United States. And now they're becoming police officers. They're becoming corrections officers. They're becoming firefighters. It is, as I've said repeatedly, it's making a mockery of our country. Now, very quickly, because the lines are jammed, 617-266-6868. This is in Washington, D.C. Okay, it's not Maine, it's Washington, D.C., but you got to hear this. This is interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, former Fox News host and personality, Jeanine Pirro, Judge Jeanine. She now has discovered, listen to this, that in the sanctuary city of the District of Columbia, that the local government is deliberately now hiding illegal aliens in their jail system. In other words, they will arrest someone, find out that that person is an illegal, and then literally just keep them in the system so that ICE is never notified. And then they'll just release them quietly through the back door. Listen now to Jeanine Pirro saying, you're not going to believe this. They're now using the correction system, the jail, prison system, as a way to hide illegals from ICE so they're not detained and deported. Roll cut 2A. Mike.
Previously, no one even asked. They would just literally go through the system and either be convicted and possibly go to jail or be found not guilty and be released. But the D.C. City Council has worked very hard to make sure that these individuals avoid any contact with ICE, almost to the point where the law requires, upon a request by a defense attorney, that an illegal be removed to the Department of Corrections when there may be no actual case, to kind of throw the feds off, as opposed to simply releasing them from the courthouse right then and there.
That's incredible. I mean, that's just incredible. So let's not release them, and then ICE will scoop them up and then deport them. No. No, keep them in the system. Just keep them in jail for a few days longer. Give them 3 meals a day, an iPad, computers, whatever they want. And then, okay, ICE now, they're off the scent. ICE is now looking for somebody else. And, okay, release them through the back door. What is it with Democrats, blue cities, blue states, that they are so determined to hide, coddle, and protect illegal aliens? People who broke our laws and came into our nation illegally. Seriously, what is it? They're obsessed. They're obsessed with defending illegal aliens at all costs. Caspar in Belmont. Thanks for holding, Caspar, and welcome.
Welcome, Jeff. Geez,
Hi.
You want to make me go to 2 different topics now. But the original topic, have your producer look into it. Mitt Romney got into trouble because his landscaper hired somebody that was illegal, and it almost cost him his political career because they said, you hired an illegal. No, he hired Joe's Landscaping. I forget the name of the landscaping company. But they put his feet into the fire over it. I mean, you don't have a Social Security number. You're not a citizen. The IRS is the most powerful agency on the planet. Does not take kindly to people not paying their taxes or contributing to the Medicare. I mean, you lose your job, not your job, you lose your company. They could lose their police force because that's the company that hired them. Or maybe they lose their town government because maybe it was the town government that hired them. Or maybe all the people in Old Orchard are in trouble because technically, don't they run their town? You know, this is not, you know, fooling around. This is really, really serious. And, you know, when you bring people in from foreign countries, this is the second point that you were mentioning. The United States is a sovereign country. If you put people in charge of this country that are not citizens, that's a huge violation of everything that's in the Constitution and in this government. And, you know, jail time, I'd throw them out. I'd throw them out of the country. This, we're not fooling around with this. This is really, really serious. I mean, you know, words can't even describe what's going on.
Oh, you're definitely, look, you're wrong. You're 1,000% correct. You're dead on. And look, you know, you touched on it earlier. We're a sovereign country. Now we're going to start bringing in people in illegally and then put them in positions of authority over American citizens, up to and including now arresting us and allegedly enforcing our laws against us that they're breaking, knowingly, willfully breaking. Holy mackerel. Now, by the way, in any other country in the world, this would be the biggest story in the country. Do you think, I don't care, take your pick, France, take Denmark, take your pick, Japan, I don't think, just take your pick. So hold on, you're bringing in foreigners illegally into the country, and you're making them police officers? And they're going to lord it over us? And they can rule over us? And they can put us in jail? And the whole police and how the attitude of the police department. Well, we put it through E-Verify. We asked the DHS. They said it was okay. It's the federal government's problem. No, it's your problem. You hired the illegal. You're the one that brought him on board. And I'm with you all the way, Kaspar. Look, the police department now, I think there needs to be a DOJ, FBI investigation. I don't buy their story for a second. I agree with you. This guy had no social security number. How the hell did this guy even get through the front door? And I think, Kaspar, look, I go back to what I said in my opening monologue. They were determined to hire a minority, to be a police officer. They don't care how they did it, by hook or by crook. And they knew he was an illegal, and they willfully turned a blind eye. And I want to know, was the town council, were they in on it? Was the town manager, was he in on it? Was it just the police chief? Was it just the police department? And look, Kaspar, to me, this goes to the larger question. Honestly, I don't know what the hell's going on in Maine. But Maine they're becoming Massachusetts, like overnight. They're becoming almost as bad as Massachusetts and California. I mean, Kaspar, final word to you. Am I wrong?
Two, I'm going to reinforce, stick the IRS on them. And number two, when the police officer knocks on your door, is he enforcing Maine law, United States law, or is he going to start using Sharia law? You know, or Jamaican law, or Russian law, or, you know, you name the country. Whose law is he going to enforce when he comes to your door? You don't know. So when the guy had called in earlier and he says, let me see your papers, let me see which laws you're coming in under when you come to my door. I need to know. Am I breaking Maine laws, U.S. laws? Whose law am I breaking?
That's a great point.
This is really bad.
Oh, it's horrible. I agree with you. It's horrific. Kaspar, thank you very much for that call. It's a watershed. They just keep, it's like boiling the frog. And now they've just taken it up one big degree. You know, they just keep rocking. They just keep raising the temperature and raising the temperature and raising the temperature. And this is now now let's make them police officers. And Thankfully, they got caught. But again, it's their response. Their response is, what's everybody getting so upset about? It was a snag in the system, and we'll fix the system. No, you wanted an illegal. You hired an illegal. 617-266-6868 is the number. Carrie in West Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Carrie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Carrie.
Good morning. You know, what's funny, when my nephew, who's now 21 years old, but when he was in elementary school, it was book week at his school, and my sister asked me, you know, my nephew and I are very close. She said, would you like to go to Will's school and read to the classroom? I said, I would love to do that. I had to pass a Corey check before I could even step foot in the classroom. So it is. I'm incredulous that they actually vetted this guy and said, "Oh, he passed all the background checks to become a police officer." That's complete and utter nonsense. You're 1,000% right. They wanted to hire a minority, and particularly an illegal alien minority, and this guy fit the bill perfectly.
Well, Carrie, look, just think about the absurdity of the situation. You're breaking and entering, okay? Just not that you ever would do it, but just humor me. You're breaking and entering. You're robbing a house. You're breaking into a home. You're burglarizing a home. And what? This guy's going to come and make the arrest. Well, hold on. You broke into our country. So you broke our laws. You broke into our country. And now what? You're going to arrest me for breaking into someone's home? Like, by what power? I mean, just see how it just completely delegitimizes the entire system of law, the rule of law. If you start putting, illegals as police officers, say you don't pay. Let's take something even much more mild. You don't pay your parking ticket, and this guy, pulls you over and says, "Hey, I looked up your license plate. You haven't paid your parking tickets." Well, okay, and you broke our laws coming into our country. So have you paid your fines? Did you get deported? So in other words, how can you enforce consequences of breaking the law when you now are the law? Because now you're enforcing the law. Now, I'm telling you, you go down this road, it's going to lead to massive disrespect for law enforcement, massive disrespect for the Constitution, massive disrespect for the rule of law. It's going to lead to anarchy. You're going to make law enforcement a freaking joke because they won't have the moral legitimacy and the moral authority to enforce any laws. Carrie, am I wrong?
No, you're 1,000% correct, and I think true. The one of the more galling things about this is their reaction to it. Like we're the ones. How dare you question our integrity? How dare you even think that there might be an issue with this? You're the one with the problem. No, you're the one with the problem.
Carrie, thank you very much for that call. Very well said. Rob in the great state of Montana. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Rob.
Got my blood boiling, so I'm not going to get back to sleep. It's still pitch black here. But let me tell you something. Maine is a cesspool of corruption. And corrupt municipalities and police departments, etc., get away with whatever they want to do. There's probably a deeper story behind this Jamaican guy than just being the token minority on the force. But it could be that simple. But Janet Mills is filthy as the day is long. And I almost guarantee you she won't enforce or force that town to fix this. She is defiant. Can I tell you a quick Janet Mills story?
Yeah, please, go ahead. Please, Rob, go ahead.
Back when she was the Attorney General of the state, and I was a very active activist for fighting child sex abuse cases. I was called to speak to a town. I won't say the town's name because I don't want to be hanging in my jail cell. I spoke to the town about cases because they had many cases of the cops raping kids, vulnerable kids, children of poor mothers, and et cetera. But you know the vulnerabilities. The police chief was covering it up. We brought victims, endless scores of victims, to Janet Mills and witnesses, and she wouldn't touch it. She wouldn't even investigate. Whenever I would have a town meeting, she would send a fleet of state police cars to intimidate the victims, the witnesses, and me, and any of the other activists. Now, the FBI told us back then, guess where the most child pornography comes from in this country? State of Maine.
Really?
It is a cesspool, Jeff.
Wow.
And now she's...
Well, Rob, I can tell you this. She's a crook. She's a thug. There's no question about it. She thinks she's going to be one of the leading never anti-Trumpers in the country. It's not just on this issue of, biological males competing in female sports or in women's locker rooms or bathrooms. Look at the way she's defying ICE. I believe I just got a text from somebody, a good friend of mine, saying only one town in all of Maine is pledging to cooperate with ICE when it comes to deporting illegal aliens. So what Janet Mills has now done is she's effectively turned Maine into a sanctuary state. It doesn't get the same attention as, say, Massachusetts or California or Illinois or New York. But I'm telling you, Maine is becoming just as left-wing, as crazy, as insane, as radical as some of these, as Marxist, frankly, and as corrupt as some of these other big blue states. And look, it's obvious what's going on up there. They're flooding that state now with illegals because the illegals are voting, and Janet Mills now wants to keep the Democratic machine in power. And they realize that illegals are their ticket to power. That's exactly what's going on. And now, and trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. They got caught now, but they're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And remember, Joe Biden openly said the problem with Maine, this was his words, it's quote unquote too white. The Democrats have been saying for years that Maine's problem is it's the whitest state in the union. Look, to me, I don't care about the ethnic or racial composition of a state. People are people. But the Democrats, as you know, are racist to the core, and they're obsessed with skin color and race. And they look at Maine and they go, it's too many white people. So they're saying that's why they're flooding it, say, with Somalis, but others. In this case, they brought in Jamaicans, but it doesn't matter. They want to flood it with third world illegal immigrants in order to change the racial ethnic composition of Maine. And they believe ultimately then turn it into a one-party democratic state. And how many people's lives get crushed and destroyed? They don't care. And you're right. The corruption in Maine, it rivals that of Massachusetts or Illinois or California or any of these other Democrat-run hellholes. Rob, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. We've now crossed the Rubicon. Should illegal aliens be allowed to become police officers? Should they now be allowed to become government employees, local, state, or federal? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we're going to go to Bill in Sudbury, but just before we do, it's Wednesday, 7:20-ish. You know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from President Trump in his meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer when he is asked by a reporter if he would visit London anytime soon.
Will you visit London during the state visit?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London. But the nasty person, I think he's done. I think he's a friend of mine. No, I think he's done a terrible job. But I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
He just immediately starts ragging on the mayor of London, who just so happens to be Keir Starmer's one of his best friends. So what do you think? Is he trolling the both of them here, or is he just flat out telling them the truth?
I think he's telling them the truth, Mike. I mean, there's a little bit of needling. You're right that there's a little bit of trolling. He's needling Keir Starmer, and of course he's really needling Sadiq Khan, the first Muslim mayor of London. But man, has he run that city into the ground. Oh, I mean, London under him it's become Londonistan. It is, it is riddled, literally overwhelmed with illegal immigrants, third world illegals, crime, drugs. London is not the city it once was. Far from it. So no, I would say truth, Mike. If I had to vote, I would say truth. Not troll, but let me ask the audience, truth or troll? Do you think Trump is serious about how bad the mayor of London has run his city? Or do you think he's having a little bit of fun and kind of, just sticking it to Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan and having a little bit of fun at their expense? I want to hear from you. Truth or troll, you can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. And of course, you can also vote on my X account, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhner. Bill in Sudbury, thanks for holding, Bill. And as always, welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. First of all, Maine is a beautiful state full of beautiful people, and you sound like a nitwit for saying otherwise. On to, why not just extend the special exemption that you gave to the farm workers and the hotel employees? Why not just extend that to police officers and soldiers and firefighters?
Okay, number one, what does the physical beauty of Maine have to do with the fact that they have crazy moonbat policies? That to me is ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry, but you never make sense whenever you call, Bill. That's number one. Number two, you honestly think police officers, illegal aliens should be police officers? Is that not your position?
It's everywhere you look. You think Rentham is Mogadishu. You think Maine is Detroit. It's the laziest position you could possibly take.
No. I know. Bill, listen, look, Bill, I don't want to listen to your straw man argument. I've never said Rentham is Mogadishu. You're lying. And just like you've lied about me in the past, you've called me a Nazi repeatedly. You've lied. You said I was an agent of Russia. You lied. You said this audience was full of Nazis and white supremacists. You lied. You said that I should be murdered. Remember that? You said this audience, members of this audience should be murdered, or that we should be thrown in detention camps. So no one wants to listen to your insane ravings. Now, Maine is changing. Maine is becoming increasingly very left-wing. There are a lot of illegals now that are being poured into Maine, and they're taking over many positions. And the corruption in Maine is beyond disgusting. Now, what I'm asking is a different story. What I'm asking you is, you said that there should be exemptions should be made for illegals in the police, fire department, and in the military. My question to you, very simple, because this is the scandal of the day. You're saying now that illegals should be police officers? Is that your position?
Is he a gangbanger or a murderer or a rapist? Which of those is he? Because that's who you said you were going after, but now you're going after soldiers and cops and that kind of stuff. And I'm just acknowledging the change.
No. I don't know what you're talking about. Again, I don't know. I don't know if you're off your meds this morning. Seriously. So if you are, go back on your medications. I have no idea what you're saying. I'm asking you again. This is the third time and the last time. Is your position, should illegal aliens be police officers? Is that your position?
And you describe Beirut as the same.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Bill. Have a nice day. Thanks for the call. 617-266. I mean, the guy's an idiot. It's just, I'm sorry. I'm not going to waste your time by listening to the ravings of a madman. Heather in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
So in the answer to your question, absolutely not. No, illegals should not be part in no way, shape, or form, whether they're illegal, green card, visa, any of it. They should not be part of any part of the U.S. government, police force, any of it. Absolutely not. So that's my answer to that. But this is kind of what I was going to say is, and I sound a little like naive, but I'm not. My mother comes from way up northern Maine, right near the border of Canada. Like you can go to Canada in like 5 minutes. Because my mother grew up on a potato farm, so as a kid I used to go up there when we were kids, up on the farm, like to visit my grandparents. And there was no diversity whatsoever. You never saw a black person, you never saw an Asian person. It was all white Baptist. And my grandparents were very racist.
617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Heather in Rockland. She was saying that she has, her parents, her grandparents were from northern Maine, right near the Canadian border. They had a potato farm. Things were very different back in those days. Heather, please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, so when I grew up, like I said, there was no diversity whatsoever. And I came in here to ask in my mother's room, came in to ask my mother if it was still like that, because she said my grandparents were like very like racist. She said you weren't allowed, like if you weren't allowed to even go near like some like a black person or any, if you saw one, but there was nobody. I mean, I've never saw a black person when I ever went up to visit. I asked her if it has changed, and she says she wasn't really sure. She doesn't think so. She doesn't really think so, because we haven't been up there since my grandparents have died. But like my grandparents were conservatives, and I think most of the people up there were like that. So, and obviously Maine's a big state, so it's like, it's not just up there, like people are different, probably in southern Maine, and I'm not like naive enough not to know that, but I whenever I think of Maine, I just think of my grandparents up there, how like, different, like it's just totally white people, like no diversity, and they're very like, very Baptist. Even like my grandparents didn't like my mother associating with Catholics, and needless to say, she turned Catholic when she met my father. That's another story about when she married my father. But it's like that kind of thing. So when I hear about Maine, I guess I get surprised every time I hear.
Oh no, those days are long gone. I mean, Heather, they're long gone. Look, it's a lot like California. People forget about California, but California was it was Reagan country. It was Nixon country. Republicans dominated California for generations. They elected Reagan as governor 2 times. They voted for Nixon overwhelmingly. They voted for Reagan again in 80 and 84. So, for decade after decade after decade, when you said to people California, they would think right away, not just Republican, but conservative Republican. And those days are long gone. And that's primarily because of third world illegal immigration. They flooded the country with illegals, and by demographically transforming California, and that was the intent, they politically transformed California. And they want to do the exact same thing to Maine. Now, Maine's a little bit more complicated because what you're seeing in the coastal areas, that's the real change, is you're also getting a lot of these Massachusetts liberals. The way they're changing New Hampshire, well, many of them are going to these coastal areas, retiring or getting a second home or whatever it is, and they're bringing their crazy politics with them. And, these are the elites of Massachusetts. These are the limousine liberals. So it's not enough that they wrecked Massachusetts, but now they have to go out there and then wreck either New Hampshire, these mass refugees, as they're called, or now wreck Maine. But that's where the population is. It's in the southern areas and in the coastal areas. And that's... when you think about the country club type, the yachting type, the latte sipping type, these are the Massachusetts lefties. And they've got money. A lot of them are well-to-do, but they vote very far left-wing. These are the Elizabeth Warren people. These are the Maura Healey people, the Michelle Wu people. They are Mamdani. They're pro-Mamdani all the way, pro-Bernie, pro-AOC. So that's why it's not even that Maine is trending, say, center-left. It's becoming very radical, very fast. Just look at her crazy Janet Mills, her insane position on, biological men and women's sports. And the woman is willing to risk federal funding for schools and education. She's going to cost that state a ton of money. She doesn't care. Biological men, according to her, have to be in women's bathrooms. They have to be in their showers. They have to be in their locker rooms, and they have to be stealing trophies from biological women. The woman's a kook. On immigration, she refuses to cooperate with ICE. She's ordered the police department of every town not to cooperate with ICE. Maine is a sanctuary state under Janet Mills. So, and the state's getting worse, and the corruption up there is unbelievable. The political corruption is unbelievable. So, and I'm going to read a text, by the way. The Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party, has infiltrated Maine almost as bad as it has, say, California or some other states. It's the ticking time bomb scandal of the state of Maine. And Janet Mills is up to her eyeballs in Chi-Com money and Chi-Com influence. Heather, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. In fact, let me read to you two texts. This is from 603. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. But if you want to know why Maine is trending blue, and again, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren blue. I'm talking crazy left-wing blue. Here's what 603 lays out. Jeff, let me expand on the point you made about Maine becoming increasingly blue. Maine had always been a fairly conservative state, much like New Hampshire. And if you look to the interior of the state, where your traditional Mainers live, it's still mainly conservative. Where it starts to trend more purple and then increasingly blue is when you get towards the coastline. This is where all your rich and entitled liberal, quote-unquote, coasties live. The White Shoe Yacht Club types. Very similar to Newburyport or Cape Cod or Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. There are also, no doubt, many mass transplants or mass plants, as I call them, who have moved up there and retired over the years. The coast has a much higher population density than the rest of the state, so that particular region has the ability to swing the political dynamics quite a bit. You often say, Jeff, import the third world, become the third world. Well, in this case, it's at least partly due you import Massachusetts, you become Massachusetts. It's a true story. And I've got to ask about that illegal alien from Jamaica who became a police officer in Old Orchard. How did this guy get accepted to or graduate from a police academy? Or did he even go to a police academy? No, he didn't even go to a police academy. They gave him a couple of courses. Seriously. They just came up there, give him some training, and boom, slap a badge on him, give him a gun, start arresting people. Go ahead. I mean, what police academy? They rushed this guy through to make him a police officer as quickly as possible. Okay, one more, and this is the mother lode, as they say. Jeff, during the reign of Janet Mills, Maine has become a woke nightmare, much as Vermont did some years ago. The state is controlled by Democrats who dominate in the coastal and southern counties. It's really become, and I love this phrase, Vermont by the sea. Only the far north counties, what you were talking about, Heather, still resemble the Maine of old. Mills is in bed with the Chinese Communist Party, and that's not hyperbole. In Scarborough, Maine, many, many thousands of housing units are being built on and near the old horse racing track. It's a small town. For whom are these units intended? A friend of mine who grew up in Scarborough and still lives there says these are stealth housing for the eventual mass importation of illegals. And the entire state, listen to this, has turned a blind eye to some 400 Chinese-owned marijuana growing operations. Chinese nationals are buying up real estate left and right all across the state, not just homes, but farmland and huge commercial properties. And Janet Mills' brother is an attorney. 617-266-6868 is the number. Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Very good. How are you, Angelo?
Very good. The weather's been good. Hey, so what? Bill in Sudbury cracks me up. He's drinking that Kool-Aid. I think he's got to be very careful that it's not laced with the fentanyl because he could be in trouble. But anyway...
But Angelo, hold on. Do you see how these leftists are? This is what's shocking. Yeah. You criticize the corrupt, incompetent, really borderline treasonous political leadership of a state. And their response is, if you can't see that Maine is a physically beautiful state, then you're crazy. Well, yeah, of course Maine is a beautiful state. Everybody knows that. What does that have to do with Janet Mills? What does that have to do with the corrupt leadership? What does that have to do with hiring police departments, hiring illegal aliens as cops? Like, this is what's frightening about them, is they can't make the most basic connections. And then they just start, making stuff up, and they're off into outer space, and they're making all kinds of accusations. You have no idea even what they're talking about. But this is what's scary, Angelo, is that they're just completely disconnected from reality. And they can't, the ABCs of logic and reason and thinking, they can't do it. I mean, literally, they can't do it. It's this blind loyalty to the Democratic Party. And they don't care how much it destroys our country, how many people are affected by it, how much the damage that it does. He couldn't care less. And, so now what? We want to turn Maine into Massachusetts? We want to turn Maine into California? Like, can't they see the devastation all around them? I mean, it really is. It's sad. It's pathetic. And honestly, Angelo, I'm being honest. I feel sorry for him. To live in that kind of a captive mind, to be that brainwashed and that indoctrinated, and to not be able to think for yourself, it's very sad. It really is. But anyway, I digress. Angelo, go ahead, my friend. Did we just lost Angelo? Okay. I guess he couldn't take Bill that much longer too. Faith in Maine. Speaking about Maine. Faith, thanks for holding and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, if you would allow me a couple of comments, because of course I'm fired up. I was born and bred in Maine. I'm 64 years old, and people like Mills, Susan Collins has ruined our state. Bill, you have no right to comment on my state. People like you are ruining it. It is a beautiful state. Central Maine, Northern Maine, still more conservative. Southern Maine, like you said, are ruined. They come in because they've got the money to buy these places, and we can't afford it. COVID also killed it with the real estate.
Oh yeah, there's no question. And look, Faith, the dirty underbelly of all of this, and the media in Maine is petrified to report on this, is that Janet Mills has very deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This is open, it's public, it's naked. Anybody can see it if they want it. She's allowing the Chi-Coms to come in. These are investors who are serving as fronts for the Chinese Communist Party. They are buying up not just marijuana growing operations. They're buying up properties. They're buying up farmland. They're buying up commercial development. They are owning that state. And as a friend of mine texted me just during the break, when she was sworn in as the governor of Maine, you can look it up, at the front row of her signing in were Chinese Communist Party officials from the China consulate, the Chinese Communist consulate in New York City. Her brother does a lot of business with the CCP. He handles a lot of their financial and real estate transactions. So it's like the Biden crime family. Well, this is the Mills crime family on a smaller scale. But they do business with the CCP, not through Janet Mills. They do it through family members. And that's how the family enriches themselves. So Maine is being sold out, not just to foreigners, but literally to our number one enemy. And you're seeing a drug problem now in Maine that you hadn't before. I mean, it's been around 10, 15 years, but it's really getting bad now. You've got drug problems. You've got a fentanyl problem. You've got illegals now in large parts of that state. You've got these crazy leftists that you were talking about, these crazy moonbats that are now going to the coastal areas and the southern areas, who are making Maine more and more left-wing. And look, you ask the traditional people of Maine, do they like what's happening to their state? Their answer is no, because they don't recognize their own state anymore. They're pushing transgenderism in all the schools. They're discriminating against women. And, you watch. If people of Maine are not careful, they will become Massachusetts or California or Illinois very, very soon. And the Maine that we all know and love is going to be gone. Faith, what say you?
Agree with you, Jeff. And on a side note, we have a special name from people that come from Massachusetts, and I probably can't say it on air.
So, but you have noticed that there's a lot of mass transplants or mass refugees now in Maine, and that they're changing the state's politics, correct?
Absolutely. It just infuriates us because when I say I see a transplant, I go, they bring their politics and they're ruining our state. And I want to tell them, go back to your state if you don't like our politics. And it's infuriating. Faith,
thank you very much for that call. No, and this is the thing. You ask them. That it's like the same thing in New Hampshire. The mass refugees. Well, why are you going to New Hampshire? Oh, lower taxes, lower crime, lower cost of living. You run down the whole list. And how do you vote? Oh, I vote Democrat. Oh, so you vote for higher taxes and more crime and more illegal immigration and more inflation and a higher cost of living. Duh. So you bring Massachusetts with you. I'm telling you, like a plague of locusts. It's, by the way, and it's not just, it's not just Massachusetts, okay? California, same thing. Same thing. Ask the people. Tell me, I have a lot of listeners in Arizona. Is the Kuhner man wrong? I know I'm not wrong because I've been to Arizona multiple times. I've got family in Arizona. So they all come in from California, all these refugees, many of them, by the way, small business owners, middle class. And why are you fleeing? Oh, the high taxes, the crime, the illegal immigration, the high cost of living. And what do you vote for? Oh, I vote Democrat. So you vote for more taxes and more spending and more crime and more sanctuary cities and more illegal immigration and a higher cost of living. So you want to turn Arizona into California. And then once you've done destroying that beautiful state, you're just going to keep on moving. Next is Texas. Like that. I'm telling you, it's like locusts. They come, conquer, destroy, move on. Conquer, destroy, move on. 617-266-6868. Okay, I'm very happy we got Angelo and Rockland back. Angelo, we lost you temporarily. Please, my friend, pick up where you left off.
Jeff, you got me?
I got you, my friend. The floor is yours. Go.
Okay, so the dear leader, Obama, those secret flights while he was in office, planting the radical Islams in Wisconsin and Maine and Portland. This is his plan to take over and do these things. That cop from Jamaica, he's Jamaican, but he's just Jamaican being a cop. It's not right what they're doing. Being a MAGA person, we're being labeled racist because we're against radical Islam and these things in America. So these people that support that are actually being treasonous against our own country. But because we don't like it, they're labeling us to get their agenda across. Obama was very smart what he did. He secretly put them all over the country, and if Harris ever got in, this would get worse and we'd lose our country. Thank God Trump got in, and people are starting to see the light, and they're going to fight. The Democrats will fight and kick with no legs because they don't want to see America rise. Why? Couldn't tell you. But we got to stick together. New York is fighting a fight for that mayor, for the mayor, and that's Scott, the artist in New York. God bless him. He's a good activist for America, and that's all we got to do is stand tall, and we'll be fine. But what a mess we're in. We got hornet nests everywhere.
Well, Angelo, look, you're right. You really put your finger on it. Look, let's just go back a year, okay? Or even 6 months. What year? 6 months. Had Kamala Harris won the election, this guy, John Luke Evans, this illegal from Jamaica, would still be a cop in Old Orchard. Because even if ATF flagged him down and said, oh, he's an illegal alien who's trying to make an illegal firearm purchase, nothing would have happened to him. Because the Biden DOJ and the Biden ATF and Biden's ICE would have said, leave him alone. Pretend nothing happened, just look the other way. I'm just giving you an example. The illegals, there would not be a secure, sealed border. The illegals would continue to be pouring in by the millions as you and I speak. They'd probably be preparing an amnesty bill right now. So the country would have been fundamentally transformed. There's no question. So, under a Trump ATF, they caught him. Under a Trump DOJ, not only was he forced to be fired, he was arrested. And ICE now is detaining him, and apparently they're in the process of deporting this guy. But make no mistake about it, if Janet Mills has her way, if Kamala Harris won, this illegal alien would still be a police officer in Old Orchard. And you see, going back to our buddy, Bill, I kept asking him, because he said, well, no, police officers Illegal aliens should be police officers, and they should be firefighters, and they should serve in the military. So basically, they want a mercenary army. That's what they're calling for now. A mercenary army that the illegals now that they can control to then use against American citizens. When I kept asking him why, notice he wouldn't answer the question. Well, why? Why should an illegal alien be allowed to be a police officer? This is not allowed anywhere else in the world. In no other country in the world do they allow an illegal, someone who came into the country illegally, broke their laws, and is not supposed to be there. But you're going to make them an officer of the law? A cop? A police officer? Well, why? And he wouldn't answer the question. All he kept saying is, I'm a racist, I'm this, I'm that. That's all they have is name calling and insults. But you have to ask yourself, why? Why would you want to do that? And I think it's obvious. They see you and me. Look, Biden said it. I go back to the Biden presidency. Everything we need to know about the left is in the Biden presidency. He was Obama's third term. He was Obama speaking on behalf, like Obama's the puppet master and he's the puppet. And what did Biden say over and over again? Those that oppose him are the enemy. The enemy of the United States. The enemy of the government. The enemy of our republic. He said it over and over. And that we must be subdued, defeated, and conquered. That's what Biden said over again, over and over again. The left was openly fantasizing about putting us in detention camps. Bill in Sudbury called for us to be put in detention camps. He was, people like him called the show, and he did, saying we'd be better off if we were all dead. So they fantasize about exterminating or annihilating us. I'm just telling you the truth. Like it, don't like it. That's what they think. That's what they want. So why would you want our military to be dominated by illegal aliens? Why would you want our prison guards and our corrections officers to be dominated by illegals? Why would you want FBI as illegals? Police department illegals? Why would you want all that? Because they want to import their socialist army in order to rule over us and subdue us. Remember, an illegal alien like this Jamaican has no allegiance to the Constitution, has no allegiance to the United States of America. His allegiance is to his paycheck. His allegiance is to the one that let him in and keeps him in and keeps him paid. And that's Janet Mills. And that's the Democratic Party. And those are the Democrats that run Old Orchard. And that's what they want for the entire country. So I keep saying this over and over and over again. We conservatives made a fundamental miscalculation. When the Berlin Wall came down, when the Soviet Union disintegrated, and we won the Cold War, we thought communism was dead and buried. It didn't die. It just changed its costume. It just took on a new guise. And that guise is the modern Democratic Party. That's what this story in Maine is all about. They are now willing to deliberately hire illegal aliens to be police officers, to arrest us, to detain us, to enforce the law against us. Think about that. To handcuff us, to shoot us if need be, to control us. They want illegal aliens now to be patrolling our streets. And remember, these are the same Democrats that want to take away our gun rights. So this illegal, give him a badge, the authority of the law, and give him a gun. You, Angelo, no gun for you. No gun for me. So they want us defenseless, but they want these guys armed to the teeth. 617 266-6868, and one man stopped them, and that was Donald Trump. Of course, we the people backing Trump. But one man stood in their way. One man stopped them, Trump. And for this, they can never forgive him. And that's why I'm telling you, you can believe it, not believe it, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it's the God's honest truth. They tried to assassinate him not once, but twice. And by the grace of God, and only by the grace of God, was he not assassinated in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I'm not big into touting people's books, but there's a new book out by Selena Zito, Zito, on the assassination of Trump. She is a very good columnist. She's a very good journalist. She writes very well. She's a Trump supporter, and she was following Trump on the campaign trail all throughout 2024. And in her book, she describes what happened in Butler. And she says one of the things that struck her, because she was there practically on the stage, because she was covering Trump. In fact, she was scheduled to interview him after he gave that speech. So she was interacting with his staff just before he went on the stage in Butler. And she said the thing that struck her the most, that she will take with her to her grave, is that when they, allowed Trump to go on stage and then she saw him, she said, I covered hundreds of his rallies. I never saw the one thing I saw that day, that there was a chart. Trump had laid out a chart. She says occasionally at the end of a speech, at the end, the last 5 minutes, his staff would put out a chart for him, and he would give some of the numbers about illegal immigration. And, year to year under Biden, and compare it to his years as president in his first term. But she said, I found it so odd. She says, I was like, what are they doing with that chart? What's it doing there? That Trump loves to have a direct line to the audience. As she put it, he feeds off of their energy and they feed off of his. So he never wants anything impeding his sight, his visual sight, or his connection to the crowd. So she says, never, ever, in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rallies that I covered, did I ever see a chart. Maybe once or twice or three times, but that was only at the end of, say, a 90-minute or 2-hour speech. This time, I'm like, what's that chart doing there? Like, that's just so odd. And then she said the other thing he never does. He never looks to the left or to the right when he speaks. He always looks straight into the crowd. She goes, that's just his trademark. His eyes lock in. His face locks in. The crowd locks in on him. He locks in on the crowd. But he started the speech, she said, which was so uncharacteristic of him, looking to the right at the chart. And so she says, that's the thing that strikes me the most, that the chart was never there before, and it was there, and that he just started to look at the chart. So he started to look rightward, turned his head to the right. And she said, in retrospect, had there been no chart, and had he not started to look to the right, had he just been talking straight the way he always does, with nothing impeding him, that bullet would have hit him right in the brain. I mean, it would have hit him right in the brain. It would have been JFK all over again. And she says the only way I can describe it is the hand of God. That God that day was looking out for Donald J. Trump. And it was literally some staffer that suggested to Trump, hey, you know what? You're always, you finish on immigration. Hey, this is Butler, Pennsylvania. It's a red hot issue. Lead with immigration. Let's get that chart out first. Let's try something new. And he said, okay. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. Should illegal aliens be allowed to be police officers? Liberals say yes. I say they're insane. What say you? Jim in Wilmington. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing great. So in regards to the illegals being police officers, that's ridiculous. I mean, they broke the law. How can they enforce the law on us? But I did call in regards to the permit. He put in for a permit to carry a firearm.
Yes. The Jamaican. His name is John Luke Evans. So the Jamaican. He was a police officer in Maine, in Old Orchard, and he wanted an extra gun, and he applied for a permit, and ATF, that's how they flagged the fact that he was an illegal.
So what I was going to say is when I graduated the academy from the corrections, I was issued a permit. You know, it said the gun, the billy club, handcuffs, whatever we used. A lot of departments used to give a person a badge and a gun, and they look good in the state, carry. Now, most of them demand that you go and apply for your own firearms permit. So that's probably what happened. I'm not sure, but it's a good thing.
Oh, I get it. So you can only say have your gun, say, during the hours that you're working, but if off duty, you're not allowed to bring your firearm with you, correct?
No, what I mean is they're not going to allow you to carry a badge and carry a gun anywhere you want in the state. So they want you to get your own firearms permit. So you got to go to your city or town and apply.
Ah, okay.
So on duty, you're covered, but they want you to have your own permit. Most departments do that now.
Now, Jim, what if you don't want to get your personal firearm? Like, in other words, like, look, Jim, I'm an illegal, okay? Just humor me. And I come in through Miami International Airport. I'm just here to party for a week, like this guy. But you know what? I like it here so much. It's a hell of a lot better here than it is in Jamaica. And then, you get the free welfare and the public housing and the EBT, and you start getting all, the prepaid credit cards, and you're like, this is great. And then you end up going to Maine, and you go, my God, the beach is up here in Maine in the summer. This is beautiful. And you go, hey, they're hiring police officers, and they're really stressing they want DEI. They want someone, basically only black people will hire. We just want black people. So he applies. Goes, what the hell? He applies, and guess what? He gets the job. But he's got half a brain. And he realizes now, I got it really good. Because remember, he's getting a salary. He's getting a pension plan. He's getting a gold-plated health care plan. He gets to walk around and act like, Mr. Tough Guy. He's got a badge. He's got a gun. I don't want to push this. I don't want to apply for a personal firearm. I got a good thing going here, and everybody's turned a blind eye. If I apply for a personal firearm, this is now federal. They may catch me and I could get in trouble. So what if, Jim, I decided to say, no, I'm just going to keep my, the gun that I have for my duty when I'm on duty, but I don't need a personal firearm. Would the police department force you to get your own personal firearm, or could you have rejected that request?
No, if you're not going to carry off duty, there's no need that you put in for a firearms permit because you're covered in the city or town you're working in under that badge and the authority that they gave you.
So it was basically his greed that did him in.
Yes, if he didn't do that, this might not have come to light.
Oh, no, he would have gotten away with it. See, that's why, okay, so, yeah, Jim, because you answered my question, because I'm reading story after story, and I'm like, what an idiot. Like, just don't apply for the gun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got a gun when you're on duty. What do you need an extra gun for? So, anyway, look, thankfully he did, Jim, because we caught him. Jim, thank you very much for that call. G-Man in Vermont. Thanks for holding, G-Man, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, G-Man.
These things that happen remind me a lot of some novels that I have read that everybody has read and has been made into movies that sort of seem to predict the future. And the most recent one I'm thinking of is A Clockwork Orange. Remember that one? By Anthony Burgess.
Jim, I saw it so long ago that I pretty much forgot the movie. I mean, I remember watching it, but I can't. So what was the basic plot without giving away the ending, G-Man?
It was a dystopian future, and a large part of it was that in England, or whatever he called it at that point, it was pretty much run by Russians. And they spoke a kind of slang they called nadsat. And, but it just seems like, we're sort of seeing these Brave New World, 1984, and now I see Clockwork Orange, where they're having the cops are all foreigners. They're not like local people. They're from someplace else.
Oh, I agree. Well, G-Man, I think that's the ultimate plan. Yeah. I think it's not just cops. They want the military, they want federal law enforcement, they want illegal aliens to essentially be these are their shock troops. And they'll be beholden not to the Constitution, but to the Democratic Party. 617-266-6868 is the number. Obviously, I'm going to continue to take your calls on this topic, but let me just quickly throw another log on the fire, because it's a point that, frankly, many of you are making either on the text line or in emails to the Kuhner Man. And that is, of course, that vicious beating that was captured on tape and has now gone viral all across the country over the weekend in Cincinnati. And it was two white people. It was a male and a female. The woman, we're getting a name now. Her first name is Holly. They're keeping her last name anonymous for obvious reasons. She is a single mother who went to a birthday party. Now, this was a Friday night in Cincinnati. And right there in downtown Cincinnati, there was a mob of black individuals, several black men, several black women. Frankly, the women looked to me like in their 20s. I mean, they were quite young. And they claim that there was a racial slur or something racial was said to them, and that's why they got so angry. But whatever the cause, what has shocked the conscience of the country is that you clearly see it's a mob. It is black on white, and a white, middle-aged, bald man is being beaten repeatedly. I mean, just kicked, punched over and over by a mob of both black men and black women until he falls, collapses to the ground. And then there was a white woman who was, Holly, is there as well. And I only saw it once. I can't watch it again. It is so brutal and horrific. She literally gets slugged right in the head. And she collapses onto the concrete, onto the street. And her head smashes against the asphalt. And she's completely unconscious. She's completely knocked out. And blood is oozing out of her mouth. And you just see her eyes wide open. Now, as they're laying on the ground, both of them defenseless. I mean, they're beaten to a pulp. You still see some in the mob. Kick him in the head, he's still breathing. Kick him in the head, he's still breathing. And you see them kicking them in the head, kicking them in the face, kicking them in the ribs. As they're lying on the ground, their bodies twitching. And they're laughing at them. The mob is laughing at them. And as all of this is going on, not one person intervened to help. Instead, everybody pulls out their cameras. And they're all videotaping it. And they're like, look, this is going to get a lot of clicks. This is going to go viral. Only one person thought to call 911. One. And there were a lot of bystanders. Now, it was clearly racist. It was a racial attack. There's no question. As many people have pointed out, this is not original on my part. Had this been the exact opposite, a white mob of white men, white women, attacking, two black people, a black male and a black female, and beat them the way as severely and as brutally as those two were beaten, this would be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 24/7 coverage. The media, it would be the crime of the century. The cable news networks, the evening news, that's all they would talk about. Until Elon Musk, 3 days later, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, finally on Monday, until Elon began to show the viral clips of these two white people being absolutely pulverized by this, rampaging black mob. And he's like, MSNBC, 0 minutes, covering the story. CBS, 0. CNN, 0. He goes right through the entire media. He goes, what's going on? This should be one of the biggest stories in the country. And then finally, social media exploded. And on social media, they began demanding, how come no arrests have been made? How come the police are not even investigating this? Where is the police commissioner? Where is the police chief? So, the woke Cincinnati police commissioner, and my God, is she an idiot. I'm telling you, whoa. Trust me, she can give our police commissioner here a run for his money, okay? This woman, whoa, who the hell gave her that job? But let that go. She delivers this stunning press conference where she doesn't blame the perpetrators, the thugs who beat these two white people to a pulp. No. She blames social media, saying, this wouldn't be a story. This wouldn't be such a big deal if you guys weren't going on about it on social media. You guys are to blame. You're making this story bigger than what it is. And people's jaw were bigger than what it is. It was a brutal assault in downtown Cincinnati, in which these two white people, the man and the woman, are lucky to be alive. And by the way, downtown, Friday night, people are out, they're going to clubs, they're going to bars, they're going to restaurants. There's no police. It took an ambulance forever to get there. No police presence whatsoever. Now, only because of social media pressure did this commissioner finally order the police department to make arrests. And even then, they're trying to hide who the people are that committed these were hate crimes, that committed this hate crime and what they're being charged with. Now, my point is just this, okay? You have these woke police commissioners and police chiefs that we are now starting to see in, whether it be in towns like in Old Orchard, in Maine, or in big cities like Cincinnati, who are not interested in law and order. They're not interested in protecting innocent civilians and innocent citizens, public safety. What they're interested in is being woke. That's what they care about. It's about peddling and implementing the ideological line. It's about pushing DEI, people who are being hired, like this police commissioner in Cincinnati, who clearly has no business being police chief, and whose job it is to enforce DEI woke orthodoxy. White people can be targeted at will. white people can be beaten and assaulted with impunity. Because white people are always and only the racists and the oppressors. They can never be the victim or the oppressed. Or if you go take it to Maine, in Old Orchard, illegal aliens are better than American citizens. Illegal aliens are oppressed. Illegal aliens are victims. And so they should be hired as police officers. Because God forbid you should hire U.S. citizens to be police officers. This ideology of wokeness. Okay, just very, very quickly, because there's another very extra dimension or another angle that's very important to this story. What is also part and parcel of woke ideology, which is really a form of Marxism, is this hatred for the United States and hatred for everything the United States stands for. Our history, our culture, our traditions, our sovereignty as a nation, the sense that we're one people, one culture, one nation. Woke ideology is at war with that. And so you see it, for example, that's why they want to hire illegal aliens now as police officers. Because being an American or being an American citizen means nothing. They want to encourage people to flood our country, come in, essentially invade, and then take over positions of power. What they're also encouraging is ethnic separatism, racial tribalism, and now this is what's very dangerous. Okay, that is dangerous enough. That's the balkanization of our country. But literally now, loyalty to your prior homeland, either you directly or through your parents, either your direct homeland or your ancestral homeland. And so what you're starting to see now is take Ilhan Omar, okay, out of Minnesota. Some people did something. Congresswoman Omar. She has now given speech after speech in which she has openly said that her first duty as a member of Congress is to serve and advance the interests of Somalia, not America, Somalia. Remember, she's originally a refugee from Somalia who committed immigration fraud and marriage fraud to get into the United States. But let that go. There is now a mayoral candidate. He's called the Minneapolis Mamdani. He is a radical left-wing socialist. He's a communist. His name is Omar Fateh, Fateh. He's of Somali descent. Okay, his parents came from Somalia. He has openly said now on the campaign trail, and by the way, like Mamdani, he now looks like he's going to be the next mayor of Minneapolis. Very much in the mold of AOC, of Bernie, and of course of Mamdani. He has openly said his first allegiance is to Somalia, and that his goal as mayor of Minneapolis will be to advance the interests not just of the Somali community in Minneapolis, but literally of Somalia and the Somali government. Now, let's go to Maine, where you had that scandal of this illegal alien Jamaican who became a police officer hired by Old Orchard. Listen now. This is a Democrat state representative, Maine, on ABC. Decca Dalak. Listen now to what she says is her goal. Don't take my word for it. Roll cut 6C, Mike.
Policies, how can the politics in Somalia can be, resonate what we have here in the United States, the democracy that we have. How can you help us, be a better country and build back what we used to have back in long time ago? So hopefully we will be able to help our country, our former country, Somalia.
Our job in Maine and her job as a state rep is how we can help our former country of Somalia, and help Somalia build up its democracy, and help Somalia advance as a country. Now, they're not even hiding it anymore. And you know what's incredible, if you just very quickly, the most devastating charge for the last 250 years, up until recently in American politics, I don't care, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, was the charge of dual loyalty. I'm just going to use an example. You came from Ireland. Oh, you're loyal to both Ireland and the United States. And people say, oh my God, don't say that. My loyalty is to America first. Whatever. Italy, same thing. Oh, you're loyal to Italy and and America. No, my loyalty is to America. Whatever. Okay? You're Jewish. Are you loyal to Israel or to America? No, hey, my loyalty is to America. The charge of dual loyalty was devastating. And people would deny it. Like, absolutely, are you crazy? Hey, come on, my allegiance is to America, not to the country that either I left or my parents or grandparents left. And in politics, if they could prove you had dual loyalty, that was the kiss of death, you were done politically. I don't care, Republican, Democrat, Independent, you were finished. Now, what dual loyalty? It's almost like I wish there was dual loyalty. Now, it's loyalty to the foreign country, to the ancestral to the ancestral homeland. What the hell with America? No, hey, you take me in as Somalis, as refugees, as migrants, and you can even become mayor. You can become a congresswoman. You can become a state rep. No. My loyalty is to Somalia, not to the United States of America. Why? Because you see, Somalia is a virtuous country. It's an oppressed country. It's a noble country. But America, that's an evil oppressor country. Why would I have loyalty to America? This fascist, white supremacist hellhole. She took an oath to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, not the Constitution of Somalia. But this is what woke ideology is breeding. When I say it's a cancer, it's not an exaggeration for effect. It is a poison that is going to destroy us from within. Now, I'm sorry, but there was a phrase in the 60s and 70s I want to bring back. America, love it or leave it. Now, if Somalia, you love Somalia so much, that's fine. Go to Somalia. Get out. Leave. But if you're going to live in America and get all the freedoms and liberties and benefits of being an American, and I'm telling you, being an American beats being in Somalia 1,000,000 times over. That's why they're here and not there. Then the least you can do is show some basic, I got to be careful, I don't want to swear, some basic freaking gratitude. And instead, and I'm telling you, it's not just Somalis or Somali Americans or whatever that are voting for these politicians. You got to see Omar Fateh's rallies. It's all these white, guilt-ridden progressives. They love this guy. They're kissing him on both cheeks. Grown white men, progressive men from Minneapolis are kissing this guy on both cheeks. When he says, I'm here to defend Somalia, they're like, ah. America's a racist country. Yeah. This thing is going to kill us. And we have to call it out for what it is. This is treason. This is the fifth column. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Gary in Levitt. Thanks for holding, Gary, and welcome.
Yeah, man. How are you today?
Gary, what do you make of what's happening up there in Maine, my friend?
I've got a song for you, and I'd like to sing it to the Kuhner man this morning, man.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, Kuhner man, this is for you, my friend. Gano, Gano, daylight come and I can't still buy one. Gano, Gano, green card first or you get none. Came to Maine, working jobs are done. Work all night till the sun come up. Paper stacked tall, but the system's gone. Wait till J2, you get locked up. Gano, Gano, daylight come and I can still buy one. No ID, you better start to run. Boy, I need to prove where I reside. I just want a license to protect my hide. I stand peeking from the woods outside. Gano, Gano, this song is for the Kuhner man.
Gary, it's one of your best, my friend. One of your best, buddy. Thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. By the way, I'm just for the hell of it. Go, enter Jamaica illegally. Just go to Jamaica illegally. Or go on a tourist visa or whatever and overstay. Say you're going to be there for a week and you end up staying. See how the Jamaicans treat you over there. I'm just saying. Never mind hiring you as a police officer. Show up a couple years later, go, hey, I've been living here illegally for the last couple years. Can I be a cop? See what the Jamaicans say. I'm just saying. Dr. Gina in West Roxbury. Thanks for holding, Dr. Gina, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Dr. Gina. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Kuhner Country's resident psychiatrist. I'm happy you haven't heard from you in a while, so I'm happy you called in.
All the time, and I just give up and I text you all the time. I might send you 5 or 6 texts in a show. Anyway, I got through this time. A little behind where you're at, but I had 2 questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Why is it that INS doesn't go after the overstayed visas? If I understand correctly, until more recently when the crowds of them came over in the millions under Biden, the largest percentage of illegals was represented by the overstayed visas, be they student visas, work visas, or vacation visas. If you went to Mexico, and if I overstayed the visa, they'd come get me. They know where you are. They have all your information. So that was just one question. I don't understand why U.S. is so blasé about it.
Because they want them to stay. No, I mean, Dr. Gina, honestly, that's the answer. They want them to stay. They don't want them to go back. That was one of the dirty tactics or tricks that the Biden regime used. And look, again, you just have to listen to Bill in Sudbury. He gives the game away every time he calls. They don't care. They really don't care. In fact, their answer is, really, what's your problem? Let them work in the farms. Let them work in hotels. Let them work as police officers, firefighters. Let them in the military. They really believe Dr. Gina, they'd have them be psychiatrists. I'm not kidding. You see, they'd rather that the illegals be psychiatrists than you. Why? Because they can control the illegals. They can't control you. And once you understand that, you understand their whole game. So the laws are very convenient for them. They only use them selectively to go after their opponents. But when they break them, or their people, as in these illegals, break them, they don't care. Dr. Gina, try doing anything without a social security number. I mean, just as a challenge. I can think of 50 things off the top of my head. I can't, without a social security number, I can't do it. This guy walks in there and becomes a cop. I don't mean like one of these mall guys. I'm talking literally a bona fide cop. The badge, the gun, the uniform. They even had the bulletproof vest. And it's on their website. Don't even take my word for it. Maybe they took it down now, but they had it up on their website. They were proud of this guy. And there he is, he's swearing, he's got his hand up, and he's being sworn in as a police officer. No, they love the guy. He was their star at the Old Orchard Police Department. So, no, Dr. Gina, look, they want an illegal alien talk show host. If they could get Mike out of the booth, I'm serious, and have an illegal alien run the show, they would. They'd have an illegal alien as the executive producer and chase Sandy out of her chair. To everyone out there, the teachers, you're a teacher. They would rather have an illegal alien than you. You're a doctor, a nurse, I don't care what you're, a cop. Of course they'd rather have an illegal alien. Because illegal aliens are theirs. They own them. You, they can't own. So, no, they know. The INS knew. Everybody knows there's massive tax fraud, immigration fraud taking place. That's costing this country, what, billions? Tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars. Dr. Gina, they don't care. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's honestly from the heart. That's my answer.
The country, the state, and these jobs, the oath is invalid because of their commitment to their own country or their commitment to the country they left.
Well, that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. And, Dr. Gina, you're a psychiatrist, so I'd like to ask you this. What does it say about the mentality of liberals like Bill in Sudbury that they prefer foreigners and criminals, lawbreakers, over their own fellow Americans, over their own people? And Dr. Gina, I just want you to think about this. Look at the way you talk as an example. Look at how, I follow the law. I obey the law. I respect the law. I respect my country. I respect the Constitution. I mean, there are just certain lines I don't cross. I would never cross. I wouldn't expect anyone else to cross. Notice, the Dems don't think like that. And the illegals don't think like that. Lines are meant to be crossed if it's convenient. You see? And that's why, in the end, just by the way you talk, your allegiance is to a power and an authority higher than a political party. Doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, who cares? You see? There are certain standards and principles that you adhere by that you're just not going to bend. You're not going to break. But they know with illegals, all they care about is one thing, what's good for them. And they'll break any law, any rule, any norm, any standard to get it. And that's why the Democrats love them, because that's their base. Those people they control. Those are their people. People like you, Dr. Gina, you're a citizen. And a citizen is a sovereign person. And that they fear. Dr. Gina, what say you?
With how they're brought up. It has to do with what they're taught. The Quran, for example, tells Muslims to lie so long as it advances the expansion of Islam. Lying to them is just a matter of course. They can lie about anything, so long as they can justify it as Islam is going to take over the world. That's in the Quran. So I wasn't brought up under the Quran. I was brought up under a Christian value where you learn how to be appropriately socialized and care for other people. When you look at the illegals coming across the border now, they're so entitled and they have allegiance to their country that they're leaving. They all came across with their country's flags. They didn't come across with American flags. So they had no intention of making a commitment to America. They're just going to come across and have the stupid white people support them for everything, to the tune of each one of them ultimately getting the equivalent of like $45,000 or $50,000 a year if they collected every piece of welfare they could get. But they expect it. They're entitled, and in fact, they're indignant that they're not getting 3 culturally appropriate meals per day while they were living in the hotels. It's a different mindset.
Dr. Gina, I couldn't have said it better myself. You see, we miss our Kuhner Country's resident psychiatrist. I know you try to call in, but Dr. Gina, you got to tough it out a little bit more. You got to hang on. We need to hear from you more. Dr. Gina, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, I even forgot about the culturally appropriate meals. It's true. So we have illegals in these, 5-star hotels. We're putting them all up over, Massachusetts and across the country. And they're throwing food out to the point that, the Americans that are working at these hotels are saying it's heartbreaking. These are delicious sandwiches, breakfasts, dinners. And they're like, no, it's not what we like. It's not what we eat back in the old country. Well, are you a refugee or are you not a refugee? I mean, if you're a refugee, you eat whatever's given to you. And I'm telling you, these are great sandwiches. These are great breakfast. I mean, I eat them. There's nothing. They're great meals. But it's not the right spices that we like. It's not made the way we like. It's not the food that we're accustomed to. So you come to our country, live off of us, mooch off of us, and even our food is not good enough for you? Yeah, I don't think so. 617-266-6868. There's a word for that. Ingrate. And that's the difference with these illegals compared to other waves of immigrants. A legal immigrant is the exact opposite. A legal immigrant is grateful, is humble. They own us. They think they own us. They're entitled. And you bring in enough of them, and I'm telling you, they bankrupt all of us. 617-266-6868. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Let's go to Tom in the great state of Ohio. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I heard you talking about the Queen City, so I thought I'd have to weigh in.
Yes, please, go ahead, Tom.
So I want to put a little bit of meat on the bones for your listeners about what was going on down there. So allegedly, Jeff, it's altercation. It's all just alleged. If you listen to Cincinnati Mayor Avtab Piraval, he says, let's not jump to conclusions until we get, quote, all the facts. So Friday night, this happened, I think, around 3:15 in the morning. The bars in this area called OTR, Over the Rhine, north of the downtown Central District, usually close around 2:30. On Friday night, there were a number of events that were going on in the downtown area. At Paycor Stadium, there was the Black Music Festival. You had Earth, Wind, and Fire, LL Cool J, Bootsy Collins, who's from Cincinnati, were all performing. 70-some thousand people. Right next to Paycor, Red Stadium, they were hosting the Rays. That was sold out. Next to that, Heritage Bank Arena, was Ice Cube in his Big Three basketball tournament. So there was a lot of activity, Jeff, going on Friday night. And a little bit of the backstory is the city of Cincinnati and Hamilton County are negotiating their long-term lease agreement with the Cincinnati Bengals. And one of the things that they were prohibited from doing was having events in Paycor Stadium. So in the new lease, they want to have more events like what? The Black Music Festival. So one would think the chief of police, Terry Fiji, who I think is the sister of the chief of police of New Orleans, would have had patrols out like crazy 2:30, 1:30 in the morning. No, nothing, Jeff. Nothing at all. So last night there was a meeting in downtown Cincinnati with a lot of business people, residents that live in OTR, because OTR was a gentrified area. Over the last 25 years, it's been built up, bars, restaurants, condos, and that. And there was a killing, Jeff, there about 4 months ago. 49-year-old former Marine. He had his own fitness studio. A guy who had a rap sheet as long as wallpaper got out. He was on parole. He cut off his ankle bracelet like in January. He killed this guy. He's out there 4 a.m, rummaging around, breaks into the guy's house or his studio with a knife, kills him. His poor wife had to watch it. She went before the city, the council, and everything, asked for more police because at that time, Jeff, there was one police person that was assigned to that area.
That's incredible. That's
Jeff,
incredible.
There are 20,000 shots fired last year in the city of Cincinnati. You know, those shots fired detections?
21,000 shots fired. in downtown Cincinnati last year.
Yeah, and you know what that is, Jeff? That's a potential felony. You're discharging a firearm within the city. I mean,
that's like a war
Lord
zone.
knows who's getting shot.
Tom, that's a war zone. Tom, I've got to ask you, why were there no police patrols, no police officers? You know, you're right. It's music festivals. You got all kinds of events. It's a Friday night to begin with. How come there weren't a lot of police on the streets at 1:30 to 2:30 in the morning? How come? Well, why? Is it what? Because have they defunded the police, or they just don't want the police to be there?
I think it's a combination. It really blows my mind. I listened to an interview on WLW with Bill Cunningham. He had Ken Kober, the FOP chief of police. Their numbers are really down. They're doing everything that they can to try to get recruits in. They're working these guys overtime, guys and gals overtime. So I just think that, you know what? They just turned a blind eye to it.
That's incredible, Tom. What do you make? What do you make of the fact that people were just observing? I mean, this was a vicious beatdown of both of them, not just one, of both of them. And you see, I mean, the guy's getting pummeled. He's on the ground. He can barely move. And then you still see people kicking him, stomping on him, laughing. And then that poor woman, that poor white woman, I mean, just got clocked. I mean, just slugged, and she just collapses, smashes her head on the asphalt. You can see her eyes are wide open. I thought for a second she was dead, and she's completely knocked out. Blood is oozing from her mouth, and nobody's helping. Nobody's looking to stop it. Instead, they're all filming. It's as if, Tom, there's no empathy. You know, I remember, again, I don't want to make it seem like, back in my day. But, you know, okay, yeah, there were fights when I was growing up. Yeah, sure, Montreal, it's a big city. But, you know, you knock somebody out, you have a fight, bang, you hit the guy falls down, it's over. No, now the guy or the girl, in this case, the woman, is on the ground and knocked out, and they still got to kick and stomp. And like I said earlier, kick him in the head. You know, she's still breathing, or kick him in the head. He's still breathing. What has changed in our culture, Tom, that now we got to pulverize people and beat them beyond consciousness?
Disgusting to watch that video, Jeff. And the poor woman that hit the deck and hit that concrete, I thought, just like you, I thought that she had expired. I mean, she hit hard. I just think that, Jeff, people get their kicks out of seeing these videos on social media. So you know what? Let it run its course, meaning let's just film it, and let's just film it to the bitter end. But one person, Jeff, out of 100 allegedly people watching this and filming it, there had to be at least 100. One person called 911, and it wasn't until like 20 minutes afterwards. So all these people are getting their kicks out of watching this. Now, you and I both know, Jeff, if the shoe was on the other foot.
Oh, it'd be the biggest story in the country. Oh, Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for taking the call.
My pleasure, Dan.
You know, Jeff, when you see a situation like we've got in this country where you've kind of thrown God by the wayside and you've inserted it with government, and unfortunately, our government for the last few decades have been very, very corrupt. A lot of it's gone without being seen under the covers until finally that it's metastasized as a cancer or a disease the way that it has, where actually people can see it, they can feel it, and they become uncomfortable with it. And when you have, you know, places like Chicago and New York that, you know, remember the guy that was in the subway, he was a military man, and this crazy lunatic was going after somebody. And, you know, he stood up, grabbed the guy. Unfortunately, the guy was choked to death. But he went through hell, literal hell. He could have been thrown in jail for just trying to be a good Samaritan and stand up. But many people see that. They look at that and say, well, if I do anything, I'm going to go to court. I'm going to go bankrupt. My life's going to be ruined. And this all stems from the level of corruption that this country has put us through and the amount of division, meaning conservatives, lunatic liberals. You know, unfortunately, the lunatic liberal is easily led. They're not, you know, they don't think reasonably. They think emotionally, rationally. It goes right out the window. With logic, definitely no way. So the bottom line is that it's because of the level of corruption that we've all watched and that we've all taken for as many years as we have degraded our cities, have degraded religion, have degraded, you know, the American way. And then unfortunately, you see it in the big cities where instead of going to church, you go to a gang meeting. And then, you know, you start seeing that and you're beginning to be afraid that this poor guy, I watched that clip. And let me tell you something. Those guys got their heads kicked off, and not by just one person. There was probably 6, 8, 10 people that were kicking the living hell out of 3 or 4 people. And I looked at it and I thought people were going to die. I mean, you don't get your head kicked like that and your bell rung like that and not have some serious problems thereafter. And I mean, for a long time thereafter. So the solution to this is just we need more Trumps. I mean, granted, he's one of a kind, but we need more people like him to take office, straighten out this mental mess that we've created, get people in there that are actually behind the country, that have a little bit of, you know, camaraderie and nationalism and all of the things that are important to making this world run. And you just look at what Trump's done. He's turned us around in 6 months from the laughingstock of the world to a very hot country that's doing everything right. And that should set the stage for everybody to see and look at what real leadership is and what real commitment to the country that this man has. And that's the people that we need to insert into our political system, into our media, into our academics, and everywhere else that it's needed, because quite honestly, it's our responsibility to get the situation back in control, unify the country, show the right trail. And, you know, Jeff, it just sickens me. It sickens me to see the level of how many people can just be led through ignorance.
Oh, I agree. No, Dan, I agree. And look, just going to that Cincinnati example, that vicious beating. Look, it's the mayor. You talk about corruption. That mayor is corrupt to the bone. That police commissioner, that's a clear woke hire. She has no business being a police commissioner. And again, her response to me said everything. She holds a press conference finally, because there is so much anger on social media, and they're demanding arrests and answers and explanations. And then she delivers a press conference. And I agree with you, Dan. You look at that video, it's horrific. You can't watch it. And it's, 8, 10, 12, 15. It's like a pack of wolves. And they're beating this white bald guy senseless. I mean, whatever the altercation was, it's over. I mean, you beaten the hell out of the guy. And he's in the middle of the street like an animal. They're dragging him on the street like an animal. And he's on the ground. He's completely now unconscious. And they're still stomping on him, kicking his face, kicking his ribs, jumping on top of him. And then that woman just laying there completely out cold, her eyes open, blood spewing out of her mouth. I thought she was dead. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be graphic. It's a family show, but I thought she split her head wide open and I thought her brains were coming out. I thought she was dead. And she's lying there and they're still like, what are you kicking her for? Like, what is wrong with you? And they're laughing. They're high-fiving each other. And it's exactly what Tom in Ohio said. I mean, there were hundreds of people. You can see the crowd. And they're all filming. And not one person called 911 until about maybe 15 to 20 minutes after. So you've just got 2 limp bodies on the ground in the street like this. And the mayor is trying to cover this up. The police commissioner is angry at Elon, because Elon Musk was the one that really, drew spotlight, shed a light on the whole thing. by playing the cut and saying, how come nobody's talking about this? Why is the media completely quiet about this? And she's like, damn it, you guys on social media. And in fact, what she said, if you want to get technical, she said, outside of this incident, it was a pretty good weekend in Cincinnati. Meaning, not that many people were shot or raped or mugged. But, you guys on social media, all of you, you've got to make a big deal about this. And I'm thinking, you're covering it up. Why are you trying to cover it up? You commit a crime, you go to jail. You commit a vicious beating, you go to jail. Now, look, it's obvious. The mayor is corrupt. The police commissioner is corrupt. They've ordered the police to basically get off the streets. And everybody wants to turn a blind eye. Now, all this is going to lead to is even more violence. And it's going to lead to more beatings. And I'm telling you, people are going to die. It's not just going to be put them in the hospital for 6 months or permanent brain damage. And I think both of them, I don't know if they're ever going to be the same again. No, you're going to start seeing people just drop dead on the streets. And notice, they have no fear of the law. They have no fear of authority. There's no fear of any consequences. They're filming themselves beating someone to a pulp. They're putting themselves on Facebook or Instagram or X or wherever. And like, ha, 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 ha. They have no fear of anything or anybody. And that's because of the climate that they've created in these blue cities and blue states all across the country. This is liberalism. You hate the police, you defund the police, you hate law and order, and it's open season, frankly, especially on white people. I'm just going to call it as it is. But in particular on law-abiding citizens. And they can smell them. They can sniff them. Oh, this one's a law-abiding person. That one's not carrying a gun. That one's not going to push back. That one's not going to fight back. So, like a bunch of bullies and thugs, 8, 10, 12, 15 of them. And look, I know this is going to sound sexist, but it's not. To me, I look at females, women as the more civilized sex. I just do. I was brought up that way. To see young women, like to me, yeah, okay, I can, men can be animals. I get it. But to see young women, Rob in Wellesley. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Jeff. Always remember, Jeff, you can never trust Democrats with your wallet, your security, or your kids. Number two, nothing personal to Dan in New Hampshire. We got to do something. Yeah, Dan, what you got to do is take out your papers and run for office. That's what you got to do. Win, lose, or draw. Like the state of Massachusetts, when I ran in 24, that lady, that Republican person, didn't put a single person on the ballot. Myself and the guy down in Plymouth ran on our own. Were never recognized. Shame on them. They're part of the problem. As far as the policing, the police in Boston is a great example, Jeff. Those are all government workers first, then law enforcement. We have our own Lloyd Austin in Boston. Now, that guy, originally, he was on a situation for gang members, drug dealers, and what happened was he got tuned up by the police one night because he was dressed in plain clothes, and then he ended up in Detroit, and then he got caught on a ticket scam. Again, the problem is this. The plantation people, they don't want to do anything. We've seen this many times. If you're in a place in Boston and you have some conservatives protesting something in Boston, the police will automatically go after the conservatives on purpose because they can't have those people in the city of Boston disturbing the natives because that's why the police is the way it is. Their job is to keep everybody out and keep it under control. So that's why they'll do nothing. They'll never do anything because that's just the way it is. And, Jeff, listen, the bottom line is this, folks. We need to do one thing. The cities, these communists, or remember now, Marxists are always anti-Semitic, racist, and chauvinist, no matter what happens. And don't go down the racist hole. Always talk about their ideology all the time. No one likes a Marxist, a Bolshevik, a communist, a socialist. They all are terrible people. But you just have to understand, the one thing they need, Jeff, is money. They need money to keep the plantation going to stay in power. So, number one, folks, hey, you can't sit in the sideline anymore. They're coming after you. They built an army, and they're coming after you. If you think you can sit in the sideline, you're out of your mind. They'll steal your car. And the one thing, Jeff, about the beating, the thing that I noticed, when the girl got sucker punched and got knocked out, the girl with the white pants on went to steal her watch when her hand was in the air.
No, I noticed that. Yeah, no, like, I mean to laugh. Either you laugh or you cry. But, I mean, she gets viciously, you're right, sucker punched. The poor, white woman falls. Her head smashes on the asphalt. And then, like, her arm is, like, just jerking in the air because she's out cold. And blood is spewing out of her mouth. And then one of the members of the mob is like, yeah, can I grab the watch? Can I just just pick her clean? Rob, honestly, it's beyond disgusting. And I think what the country finds so reprehensible and so shocking is that it was so cold, so amoral, no sympathy, no empathy whatsoever. Human life has no value. It was so brutal. These two people were treated like they were animals. The victims, and the way they were just dragged on the streets like they were a piece of meat. And then rather than do anything about it, make arrests, indict people, hold people accountable, they were going to let this go. The police commissioner in Cincinnati was going to sweep this under the rug. The mayor was going to sweep it under the rug. If it wasn't for social media and people like you, Rob, gadflies who they can't stand because you're not going to be put in your place, you're going to constantly speak out and be active, nothing would have happened. Two people in the hospital, maybe permanent brain damage, and no one would have gone to jail. Nothing would have happened. They would have just been internet superstars on social media. I mean, that's how sick and perverted it's becoming. So I agree with you. We've got to start running for office. Local, it doesn't matter. School board, it doesn't matter. Town council, city council. But we've got to start, at a minimum, if you're not going to run, volunteer and get active. Work for a campaign, but we've all got to do our part. Rob, thank you very much for that call. Paul in New Hampshire. Paul, I hate to do this to you. I've got 1 minute. The floor is all yours. Go.
Okay, Jeff. I hope you took your blood pressure pill because I got more information for you. The Maine Wire ran that story on the cop in Old Orchard Beach. The last paragraph of the article says that in April, ICE detained a corrections officer in Cumberland County who was illegally here. He overstayed his visa from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he's now apparently in a ICE detention center in New Hampshire. So take another blood pressure pill.
Incredible. So now they're hiring illegals as corrections officers, Paul. So the criminals, sorry, either you laugh or you cry. The criminals are now watching over the criminals.